was over at Morgan and Joey's last night, and Deb, I was reminded remember when you were talking, didn't you post something about the Roomba?
How it listens to you?
Yeah, did we already talk about that?
I haven't talked about it. No, but man, I don't know. I don't doubt it.
I did post a thing where
it gets mad at you and sucks up all your like jewelry.
It's like that's where all the extra socks are going.
Oh yeah. You don't notice it, but every time you're moving laundry from the dryer to the hamper to your couch or whatever, little fucker's just sitting around the corner like, yeah, you drop one, it's gone. You drop one, it's gone.
Did it.
It's just clogged with socks. Yeah. Well, what was that?
It was saying that it was taking photos instead of just scanning the room. You know how it's supposed to scan the room so it doesn't run into a bunch of shit?
I mean, I guess that's how it might scan.
Yeah. But then it was taking photos and like people can access them. Because you have to give permissions to the app and somehow in those terms and conditions, like,
dude, there's in every terms and condition.
Yeah, it's funny because I was talking to Joey and Morgan about it last night because they have one, like someone gave them one. And I was like, I think Devin posted something about, I don't know if it listens to you or if it takes video of you or pictures of you. And Morgan was like, that's it. We're getting rid of it. We're getting rid of it. And, but then we were talking about it and Joey goes, well, I mean, your phone could take pictures of you and you know what I mean? And it listens to you. I mean, just look at like your Instagram ads.
Yeah.
Like how it suggests things. And then I was like, well, I mean, because I was telling them how weird I am about putting tape over.
I was just gonna say, Jeanna, take your tape off. They can honestly, they could probably see through it. They're like, oh, this bitch thinks we can't see
this bitch. This is just duct tape.
Band-Aid.
Well, I even thought about that because I was gonna put like regular Scotch tape, but I always put duct tape over it.
Yeah.
So like I take it off for like this, and then I put it back on. So I was telling them that and they were like looking at me like I was crazy, but I was like, oh, okay, but you're worried about your Roomba. And I was like, there's cameras on TVs.
No, the thing is,
they can access anything they want. I did get rid of Alexa though. I threw that bitch in the trash.
Good, because she's a bitch.
She is. Well, you know what? This is the thing. And I was talking to Morgan about it last night. She all of a sudden always would say, out of the blue, I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
And you're like, I would be like, talking to you.
Really?
Oh yeah. She would just talk for no reason as if I had said something.
Yeah, she would do it.
But it was like, I was talking to somebody else and you're just like, what? Did she not realize that this was just a 2-person conversation?
Yeah,
3-person conversation.
This is an A-B conversation. See your way out of it, please, Alexa.
Yeah, but she didn't even do it when it was quiet.
I was afraid of her.
Yeah. Well, I feel like we just have to be afraid of everything now.
100%.
Although I have to say, Daniel and I were talking about this because we've been reading this book. It's called Season of the Witch. And what's funny is that his brother Sam had said, hey, can we all 3 read this book? My mom suggested it, said it was really good. And I was like, cool. Yeah. Season of the Witch. Like that's right up my alley. It's probably scary. And so it was probably scary. I did not even read the back of the book. So like I had no idea what it was about. It took me 4 chapters to realize it was nonfiction. I was like, I went to the gym and Daniel's like, oh, what part are you on? I go, did you know this is nonfiction? And he goes, yeah. And I go, I'm on the 4th chapter and just realized it. It was like, because they were talking, it's about San Francisco through like the 40s and 50s and then through like the 60s and 70s. Well, anyway, there was so much crazy shit going on in San Francisco. Yeah. And I was like, and Daniel was like, he goes, after reading this, like how crazy it was through that, when people say things are so crazy nowadays, it's like, no, it's been like that.
No,
like
the only difference is we've been, I mean, this is my theory, although I feel it's pretty sound. Over decades, they've slowly been introducing crazy shit at like the tiniest amount to get people a little bit more accustomed to like what's appropriate or like what's normal or what's not. So a lot of, and now everything is, back then, like my brother made a comment about it. I don't remember what we were doing, but he said like, back when he was growing up, like my dad, it's like, they didn't have phones with cameras. Like you could just live.
I think it's connectivity.
Yes.
It's the connectivity of, seeing everything on Instagram and being inundated with all these things. I mean, if it was back then, I mean, San Francisco would have been at the root of every single
there's definitely a lot of, stories from back in like the 60s and all that. A lot of weird shit happened right near San Francisco.
Because it was kind of known as a haven for people that maybe didn't fit into like it really started like with the hippie movement. It went from being like very religious and very conservative to all of a sudden like a haven for hippies, which at that time it was really great because most people were on like psychedelics and stuff, so like it was very peaceful and loving and, all of that kind of stuff. But then I guess with like the Vietnam War and people coming back, a lot of vets ended up settling in San Francisco because people would just accept them. But then the whole era of like heroin, coke, speed, all that kind of stuff just like ruined the city. So, but yeah, it was really interesting. But yeah, I guess, but I don't like nonfiction. Like I will get through a book so quick, like in a day. And this book I've had for probably 3 weeks.
You're and like, I gotta get into it again.
I know. I gotta finish it. So I'm like 3/4 of the way through, but yeah, so things have been crazy for a while.
Yeah, I do think that it's, the ability to share and fuck, my brain's not. Share and access information so easily.
Yeah.
It's all at our fingertips.
Yep.
And and then part of that, like Brooke and I have talked about, or we've talked about before, is like, you never know what's true.
Well, that's the thing is because all of, if you look into like who started media, like long time ago, the people that were put in place to create the school systems, entertainment, news, they're all, their specialty was like is propaganda. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely, I think, we've talked about like, you only know what you know, right? It's like back when like my mom was growing up we've talked about it a long time ago, me and Jeanna, but you've seen the movie, The News of the World.
Mm-hmm.
So like that, you haven't seen it, Devin?
What was Tom Hanks?
Tom Hanks. Really, and it's good. Like, he totally surprises you. Like it is a really good movie, but like what his job is he travels from, city to city, horseback, and shares the news.
Like reads the paper.
And back then, like they wrote things. I like that style of, I think that's the way that, journalism should be, where it's like, it's the way he reads it is like just all these straight facts. Mm-hmm. Like it's not a story. Some of them are a story, but it's like,
there's no puff pieces.
It's as if they're just telling you exactly what happened. Like, it's like if something happened to me and
on this day, so-and-so shot so-and-so on this, like there's no, no opinion added to it.
No. And, so now, through, time, just how you were able to hear about something, you had to depend on somebody to share it with you. And then there was a level of trust in there. Mm-hmm. And, through generations, somewhere along the way, we should have never trusted them.
Well, it's as people grew to like have power over those things, and I think that's
and turn it into something that they could control.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because it used to be that the news was for the people, and now the news is whatever people in power want you to
create narratives, try to create diversion. It's using it as a tool in the whole grand scheme of things,
which is smart.
No, yeah, it's like don't hate the player, hate the game, and I fucking hate the game.
I know. Yeah,
No, but I hate the
it makes
players
sense.
too. I do hate the
Yeah.
players too, because they, you know, you want people who lead to be virtuous and, you know, honest and
Well, and I feel like even if somebody
have our best intention in, you know, in mind, but that's not what they have. I think that what they see us as, you know, potential collateral. You know, we're collateral in like a big plan. Whoever that's been orchestrating something, you know, things for a long time. A lot of people like us, like, or when you're at war, like you're going to do something, but there's so much collateral and there's no care for any of that because there's fucking billions of people. It's like we can lose a few.
Yeah. I think too, it's I think there are people that do go into like politics or whatever, or some people that do have money that are virtuous.
Oh, for sure.
But I think what happens is they get in there and they realize the system's so fucked up.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like they're like one person amongst so many corrupt people. It's like, how do you, I don't know. I mean, how do you even
Like,
not get pushed out?
Yeah.
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 So, cause you know, we're political analysts.
Yeah, exactly.
We have so much knowledge. You know what's wrong with the world, guys? Oh my God. Well, hey guys, welcome to Between the Reps with Brooke, Jeanna, Devin. We're happy you guys are here with us. Come on a journey with us.
Come on a journey.
Come on a journey.
Oh, you wonder where we're going? Well, we're going into this blind.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just be in my kitchen. Yeah, crazy.
We were gonna sorry, continue.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No.
You. Oh, okay. No, I was watching this thing. It was a documentary on Brooke Shields.
Mm-hmm.
And so interesting, but it's crazy how it shows her becoming, you know, this huge success as a child. You know, 13.
I think I saw the preview for that.
You should watch it. It's really interesting. And it was back in the day when, you know, if you were a celebrity like that, every single person knew you. Like now there's celebrities but you don't even know who all of them are.
No.
You know, because they're everyone's somebody important. But back in the day, she was kind of like one of the first to become like this like mega star. And it's interesting, like her mom was her manager, and her mom put her in these movies where she's so sexualized, like super sexualized. I mean, if you think about like, did you guys ever see Blue Lagoon?
Yeah.
You know, she's like 13 or 14 in that movie, you know, doing like full nudity, you know, sex scene. She was in another one that I'd never seen. It's called Pretty Baby, where she plays a daughter of a hooker in a whorehouse. And she's super sexualized in that. It's really, it's pretty disturbing, actually. I mean, you definitely see like scenes of like, you know, first love and all of that with kids nowadays. Like I think of like Euphoria or something like that. But there's more rules to it. They're more in charge, you know, of themselves, of like, you know, what they decide that they want to do and not want to do and all of that. And it was just, I don't know, it was just really interesting to see that, you know, and somebody who's always been considered, you know, beautiful. And then, you know, she talks about how, you know, she just thought that that's what she was supposed to be, is just pretty. She's like, I was just born with this face. Like, it's not like I mean, now it's like pretty much anybody can like go and get something done. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
And look
better
and look a certain way to look better or whatever. But yeah, it was, I would definitely suggest watching it. It's really interesting.
Does she talk at all about if that like affected her?
It absolutely affected her.
Not just the value based on how she looked, but like the early introduction to being sexualized.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, she stayed, she didn't become like promiscuous or anything, but she learned, you know, it's almost like when they talk about like when somebody is, you know, assaulted and they detach from their body, they get used to that like detachment, or I don't know what they actually call it, but something like that.
It's like it's a mental, it's like a detachment where you like check out.
Right.
Disassociation.
Yeah.
Disassociation. So they were talking about, she was saying how she learned that early on because she had to like do a kissing scene when she has to be, I don't know, like 10 or 11 with like a grown man in this pretty baby movie. And she was even saying, there's another movie that she was in, Endless Love, that there's a sex scene and she had never even had an orgasm. She didn't know what that was. And the director was like, pinching her toes to make her like look like she was in ecstasy. And, so she was just learning to disassociate from her body at like a very early age.
That's crazy.
Pretty sad.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy.
I saved this video that I had found on TikTok. And it's of John Paul Rice, a producer of Hunger Games, like a bunch of different movies. And it's him. He recorded himself. Going. Should I just play part of it?
Yeah.
Okay. It just kind of goes right in line with what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
May not know.
You can hear it, right?
I am. My friends know me. I'm an independent film producer.
You hear it?
I've been in Hollywood for about 20 years. I started my film career in Remember the Titans. Worked at Senator International, later Mandate Pictures under the producers who did Juno, The Grudge, Harold and Kumar, Stranger Than Fiction, and eventually The Hunger Games when they went back into Lionsgate. This is a bigger problem because most people know in that world, and the world that I come from in Hollywood, that it is a hidden layer that everybody knows is there. When the Me Too movement started in 2017, I reached out to several of my female actress friends who were prominent in LA. You would know them by name. Many of them you would know by just their look because you go, oh, that was her in that movie or that movie. And I said, well, what about the children? What about the children? And the response was, we know. But they were silent. And it destroyed me because it destroyed my illusion of what human rights were, children's rights were. This is a child abuse system that we have been living in for a very long time, and it's been allowed to go on. And I will not be silent about this because it affects every single one of us. The people on television who smile at you, who tell you stories, who give you news, are the ones who hide all of this from us. They are not talking about the real issues. They are distracting you with division issues. This is a unification issue. When the Maxwell Files came out 48 hours ago, I went on MSNBC, I went on CNN.com, and I looked at every single one of their headlines, and there was no mention of it whatsoever. They were talking about John Lewis's funeral. They were talking about Obama versus Trump, all of the bullshit that you and I hear every single day. And it doesn't matter what side of the political equation you're on this. This is a child issue. This is a human issue. This is not a political issue. It has nothing to do with left versus right, Democrat versus Republican, liberal versus conservative, or anything you are or you identify with as in between. We are faced with a crisis of consciousness among the leadership of our banking institutions, of our media corporations, of the Hollywood entertainment industry, of the music industry. This is not about a bunch of young women who were having sex with older men and make it about a bunch of perverts. They raped and tortured these girls against their own free will, no matter whether they paid them or not. If you read the articles and you listen to what Ghislaine Maxwell said about the girls that she picked up in West Palm Beach's trailer parks, she was asked, what about the young girls? What are we going to do to them? What's going to happen to them? She said, they are trash. They are nothing. That's a direct quote from the New Yorker. When I went and looked at edge.org, which you can find out was a multi-billionaire club of people that was financed by Jeffrey Epstein. You can go to edge.org today, look up under people, and go to G. You'll see Bill Gates on there as a contributing member of that organization. And you'd have to go back in the Wayback Machine and Internet Archives to look at all the other people. Jeffrey Epstein was right on there. Marina Abramovich is on there. Paul Allen was on there. All the heads of major industries were on there. And if you start reading some of the articles, one of which I have a direct link to that I will share with anybody who DMs me, there was a direct quote on there that said, indeed, human beings are, in our youngest years, among the most useless creatures in all of the animal kingdom. This is how they view children, through science. This is their expression. These are people who have no ground to tell you what to think, what to do. So when they get up there and they start espousing their views on social justice or whatever the hell it is, know that you're hearing a controlled and scripted dialogue that is going through a filter by people who are very powerful, who hold a lot of money, and they are controlling and conditioning all of these people through pedophilia. And there's another layer to it, but it's too unbelievable to believe that they would also sacrifice kids. And I'll give you one statistic that you can look up and verify for yourself. If you go to UNICEF and you look up child sex trafficking or human trafficking, you'll find a statistic globally, worldwide, according to the United Nations, that 40 million people a year are trafficked around this world. 40 million. It's $150 billion a year industry, for which has very dark and ugly ties. And it goes all the way up into Wall Street and beyond. But I will say this, 5.5 million children every year are trafficked around the world. 5.5 million, most of whom don't live past age 7 or 8, which means they have to replenish that supply chain. They harvest organs of children on a black market. In China right now, there are concentration camps for young Muslims to the tune of 1 million people. Nobody's talking about this as modern day slavery. They are beating these people, they are re-indoctrinating them, and they are raping their wives to start a new bloodline. That's happening right now in China. You can find that on the Washington Post or the New York Times. Nobody else is saying anything about it in our politics, in our mainstream news. Nobody's talking about it. It is slavery of human beings is going on today, and it must stop, and it is a child abuse issue. All of these kids that were preyed upon, many of them came from bad homes. That's not their fault. But these predators, they come after our children because they can offer them things. They can offer them alcohol, they can offer them money, they can offer them drugs to lure them in. And suddenly, as you will find out if you read the Maxwell testimony, you'll find that what they were doing is they asked Ghislaine Maxwell, well, did you ever talk to her about money that she could earn, about giving a hand job or sexual favors to Epstein? And she went through this long explanation. Well, we discussed career advice and I advised her and possibly, told her that where she could advance her career. That's as far as she would go. And then her lawyer cut her off. These people don't give a shit about anybody. And they get up there and they smile in front of you and they are infiltrated throughout all of our institutions, including government. They own the politicians, right and left. What we are going to find out very soon is that there aren't Democrats and Republicans in the United States government. There's a unified cabal of controlled people who serve these powers, and they keep the theater going for you and I to run back and forth and vote every 4 years. I have watched horror story after horror story, and I promise you this is true. Go on YouTube and find Anake Lucas, who was a child sex slave at 6 years old for the elite. And she will describe to you, she also gave a TED talk on this, but this was in 2016. She talked about the block of wood that she saw with the stains of blood of children on it. The predators are not just raping and having sex and torturing and beating these kids. They're murdering them for pleasure. This is not a pedophile. These are psychopaths. And they have no remorse whatsoever in what they're doing.
I didn't record the whole thing. I was trying to screen record it just so I could. Every time it's like on there, every time you come across something that has too much truth, it's taken down almost immediately. So sometimes if I see something, whether it's like for health, usually I'm saving videos that are like, all the different things for like cancer prevention, things that I'm like, I need to know this for, maybe for myself or someone I know, or, things like that. But
Who was that again? What was his name?
His name,
just for listeners that want to maybe.
Yeah.
Yep.
Let me grab it really quick again. He's one of the producers of. Oh yeah. John, open it up. John Paul Rice.
Now there's some real sick fuckers out there.
Dude, it's insane. But like the thing is like how he's just mentioning, and I obviously believe this too. He's trying to share this, information, but I feel like because of this is there's a thought. I haven't worked through it. So if you guys are like, that sounds stupid, Brooke. Well, it might be stupid, but I'm going to get it out anyways.
How about it?
It's almost like we're all conditioned because of like him saying, we know this. The goal for controlling people is fear, using fear, and then obviously control the food, control the people, right? Like control food, water, like how we survive. And then obviously fear, because when you're very fearful, it's like you're watching out for like, well, what do I do? Well, like, tell me what to do. Or, so we're kind of stuck in our reality of when you hear something like him, producer in Hollywood coming out and, sharing this information because it's weighing so heavy on him. He has to. Just think about the number of people that would hear that and be like, yeah, that's fake. I really think so. Or would be able to find ways to rationalize what he's saying, or to like see it from a view that I don't think is necessarily how we would naturally see it. But I almost like it might be a reaction, or like an effect. Basically, we're affected by all of the bullshit and the back and the forth and the pull and this is happening and this is happening and this is happening. So when you're constantly have all this stuff, now you're desensitized, and also it becomes harder, I would assume, to like we talked about it. It's like, what do you believe? But I stand by this is like anything to do with children. There's a fucking line in the sand. There is you can't blur it. And I had a conversation with a friend who I don't see all the time, but on Instagram, who I had reposted OUR's thing that they had talked about, kind of about like, because, I can't remember his name, Tim Ballard or something like that, who runs OUR.
Yeah.
He's basically been hunting down, child pedophiles and sex trafficking people for 18 years. And he just makes a point that like this has nothing to do with left or right or whatever. This should be a unified thing. Anything to do with
for
children.
sure. No, it definitely should. I think the problem is that there are groups that politicize it.
But that's like always been, everything becomes politicized, because I think when
more
someone
so now, yeah.
And when it becomes politicized, because if it's an issue that anyone can gain something from, right? Like, no, like all press is good press, even bad is good. It's like they can benefit from it in some way, then people they'll use it, right? Or they'll lean into it more, or which is like, it's annoying. Obviously we can't make it stop, but it's like, then for the people that are the people trying to navigate, you're making this very fucking difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's definitely something that's been going on for a very long time. Using young children in a way that's not appropriate or, whatever for our entertainment. I mean, they used to work kids to death, like, 16-hour days and,
People still do.
Well, they do, but I'm just saying that now there's certain laws. I mean, there's always some kind of progress. This has nothing to do with like trafficking or anything else. I'm just saying, so there are those things that are put in place, but the problem is I think that there's this idea that young girls, I'm just speaking of girls that are sexualized like that. It's like, they want to be doing that,
Mm-hmm.
And that's the scary part is that, and I would venture to say most, men, like, execs in the movie industry. I mean, if you think about it, it's mostly run by men. I mean, I just watched the thing I was telling you about before about, how many women screenwriters and directors there are is so few compared to men. And it's like, even in that sex scene of him, like, crunching her toes to like get her to look like she's in ecstasy. It's like, that's not ecstasy.
That's pain.
That's pain. Yeah. So it's like just even like that viewpoint of being, an older man and saying like, this is what this is, this is what that looks like for women is like, well, no, that's not what it looks like for women. That's what you think it looks like. I don't know. I just think it's like, yeah, it's just a whole huge problem. And how do you fix it? Brooke?
Well, no one's going to like my answer.
That's okay.
People need to die.
Yeah.
The right people need to die.
Drain the swamp, right?
Well, that's what
we're inciting like murder.
No, but it's just
we're not telling you to go murder anybody.
It's just truth. It's not like
this,
I say the right people because the people that do need to go are the people that are untouchable. And
right.
Instead of them going, because with all the bullshit, there's so many reasons why they shouldn't be able to do what they want. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, other people are used as pawns and end up dying because it's for the bigger picture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
or taking the fall.
mm-hmm.
I just read this article that's about how they just arrested some guy in Ukraine. I think there's a little small like write-up right here. I can read it. Jack Teixeira, Texeira, says the Ukraine whistleblower. So this just happened. Exposed Biden illegally because I was watching a video and they were describing it. It was like a news channel. And I can't remember the name, but I'm pretty sure it's through like a gaming website. So they hacked the Pentagon.
Oh,
Right, the player hate the game.
yeah.
And
He's actually a National Guard. He's like a National Guard airman or something along those lines. He's in the U.S., but he blew the whistle on the Ukraine.
So it says the Ukraine whistleblower exposed Biden illegally putting U.S. troops in Ukraine. So he exposed the fact that they put U.S. troops in Ukraine without congressional authorization per the War Powers Resolution of 1973, an impeachable offense. Says his patriotism, because now he's in jail. This is from DC Journal. He said his patriotism may end up stopping World War III. He doesn't deserve jail time. He deserves an award. But that's what happened is he exposed emails and basically paper trail about, and I know Hillary Clinton's involved, but exposed paper trail of putting U.S. troops in Ukraine and the plan for war. Like all, and so now
it's an age-old story.
Oh, 100%. And it's like
Bush did the same thing. Yeah.
But like
yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is that, like you said, they get up there, they think they're untouchable, they can do whatever they want.
Well, it's because they are. Because I feel like at this point they're more untouchable because of if they have the right people, their right people in the right places, and like we talked about, like in politics, like you get a good politician that has an opportunity to run and has good values, and well, unless that person can be bought, they'll never do well in politics because they'll never get to do what they're really trying to do because it's like it's a whole web of things to navigate, which I know nothing about. But man, what a hard, take a real tough person.
You guys watched, there's a 3-part series called Who is Hunter Biden?
I haven't seen it, no, but I want to watch it.
It's very interesting. And, my political beliefs and everything else aside, that like he is full on criminal.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. And
dude. They all are.
Dad, he has, I mean, the Biden family has so much financial interest in China and Ukraine. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Hunter's on energy company boards, and
well, I mean, look at like all of the politicians that are on board or part of like all of the pharmaceutical companies. It's the same.
I know.
It's the same bullshit. It's like that's a conflict of interest. They should not be allowed to be on these things.
I know.
And that's why I'm saying people need to die because what I'm so sick of is this. Like we're even doing it right now, and we're not in a position to even make change. Right? All we can do is have conversation and try to be aware.
Right?
Like, pay attention to the plate. Like, try to pay attention to the things that they're trying to keep everyone from paying attention to, which can be difficult. But it's the fact that, like, I mean, there's thing after thing after thing after thing that comes out that is impeachable, that is against the Constitution, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
Some big event happens, it diverts everyone's attention to it, and then they just do. Then they're like, "Oh man, they weren't supposed to find out about that. How do we spin it?" And it's like that's what I'm saying. It's like all these things that have come out. We know so many reasons that completely prove the fact that you're not in it for any of us. You're in it for yourself and for a big plan that you have, and it has nothing to do with the safety or prosperity of the people. But nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. They're not being removed from their position. They're not being like, there's nothing happening. And that's what it's like so bothersome, because it's like, well, there's nothing more that we can, there's nothing we can do.
Yeah.
Besides keep the conversation going and don't let it fizzle off and die off. And I think that it's really easy. I feel like what we need to do as the people in this time right now, because it is true that what goes around comes around. I mean, we do, like you guys were talking about the book, and Daniel kind of talking about how fucking wild it was back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s in San Francisco. Like, we think it's wild now, like it was wild back then. I think that way of thinking is what we have to get rid of, because that keeps allowing us to like be okay with how things are, because there's always been.
Oh, I don't think either one of us were saying.
Oh, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying that type of, even just how we can respond to something by recognizing it, but then just like moving on from it. And this is just for people that are listening, like in conversation, or like that in a way. I know there's not a lot that we can do in the day-to-day, but what we definitely need to not do is move on from something that really is so important so quickly, because the only thing that we have as the people to help create change is the conversation. If they can shut that down, then we really can't do anything. The whole, I haven't read it obviously, but like the Reject Act, what's it called? Is it the Reject Act? People think it's the TikTok
Yeah.
ban, but it's not. So I've listened to someone who actually read through the whole thing and kind of breaks it down in a shorter whatever. And they say like the company that owns TikTok, it's not even included in the ban. It's made to look like it's a TikTok ban, but what actually is written into it is terrifying, and people aren't realizing it. And I even like
well, it's like anytime you vote,
well, it's like even like
you like get this list, this whole explanation, and you're like, oh, I think I get it, and then you read like a rebuttal for it, and you're like, oh wait, what? Like what?
It's so convoluted. It's all in lawyer and politics speak, and it's called the Restrict Act.
The Restrict Act.
Yeah.
But for instance, the like on TikTok, which I always thought, I think all social media is bullshit, but I also think there's good power in it too. We've had that conversation. Where there's good, there's bad. It's like power for good, and it's also going to be power for evil. But there's so much information, so many intelligent people in the world, right? Different careers, and went to college, and you love investigating, or you're very, very intelligent people that aren't the people that people think should be speaking on a platform, which ends up being like a celebrity, which is something that I really don't like. Like, I don't like that they've put through media, and it really is just like, well, I mean, people can be bought, obviously. But when you're a celebrity and you're an actor, you share, everyone has their opinion, which that's what we're doing right now. We're just having conversation. But when someone has no background in, like, let's say in science, okay, let's say the theory of like is the Earth round or is it flat, right? What's crazy of like with influence, the power of influence is you take like Kim Kardashian. I mean, I know that she's like gone to law school now, but let's forget about that.
A lot of people have gone to law school.
Yes, I just mean like Kim Kardashian.
I know.
On
the
science.
the number of people that if she says something, right, we'll just take that, and like it could just be her opinion, right? But we'll take that as like
truth.
Oh man, truth.
Right.
Just that, where people can be used as pawns to spread message, is like, it's crazy. Like, you don't like, where do why are you believing her? Or believing them, or believing him, or believing all these things when they act like what they do for a living? Not Kim Kardashian. I mean, she is a terrible actress, but they act like they are believable. That is what they do. That is what they have fine-tuned.
They pretend for a living.
They pretend for a living. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I am saying,
as long as it's for entertainment, not information.
Like, what's so annoying is like, as the people or like observers or watchers or whatever, easily convinced.
Well, I think a lot of that,
you should start paying attention to like, okay, I hear what you're saying. Now, what are the things, like, what supports that? Like, what do you know, or what have you studied, or what have you done that I can lean into that to then give me some more information on like how to decide, like, if some of the things you're saying are valid or are true. Right. But I think a lot of us, because of our day and age and like instant gratification, we talked about with like kids, right? They want something now, they get it. We're on our phone. We want to look at something. We want to be stimulated all the time. It could be out of easily convinced. People believe something like that, or it could be out of impatient and lazy. Like I watch your stuff all the time. You're so honest and believable, and now you're saying this. Like, yeah, you're 100% right, but I'm not going to go and look for myself, because that takes time and it's boring and confusing. And I think that, if more people we did take the time to, instead of either immediately judging what someone's saying and discrediting them, or immediately taking what they're saying and thinking like, oh, that's 100% true. Done. Moving on to the next issue.
Yeah.
We say, okay, And then we go, well, some of those things are kind of interesting, you know.
I'll consider it.
Consider the possibility, and then like do some digging. You know, we live in a time where there's so much fucking weird shit all the time, everywhere, and lots of fear and lots of things you have to worry about and consider and think about. And that is true. So immediately getting super defensive, no matter what it is, like the issue is or whatever, practice trying to consider the possibility. And we've talked about this, Jeanna, like if you were willing to consider the possibility that whoever you're talking to about something has like, could be right, or has like, there's truth in what their opinion is or whatever. If you're able to consider that, you don't have to agree, because nobody should immediately just agree, because everything's constantly evolving and changing. And that's why we've had the conversation of the importance of continuing to learn, continuing to ask questions. So in a situation where you're being told almost like not to ask questions, it just sucks. It's like, it makes all of us feel like, what do I do with my hands all the time? Like, do I, right. Or like how you approach a cat, like you pet it a little and then you're like, wait, is this still good? Or like are you going to bite me?
Yeah. Well, I think there's a movement of our culture. And I've talked about this before, of like young people. I mean, we are so obsessed with looks and the outer appearance. Like it's gone so far, and with social media and everything. So you have this whole group of young people who really want to look like this one person, which is so shallow.
Like you see the pictures.
It's so ridiculously shallow. Like, I want to be this girl. And so then they hang on, they're like a super fan. And then they think that, and what they're not realizing is, most people, I mean, I'm not saying like universally, but there are going to be a gazillion really pretty, young, fit people, and then they have this voice. And we're just all assuming, I mean, not us, but there's these young people just assuming that they know what they're talking about. And
we've talked about it with like fitness programs.
Yeah, they have no idea it's like what they're talking
just
about.
Just because you're in shape and you're pretty and you look fit,
right?
It doesn't mean you are qualified or have anywhere.
But you could be like somebody like an actual fitness expert that's maybe not, that perfect body type, that's maybe not seen from outsiders as what we perceive as beautiful, and no one's going to listen to them.
Yep.
And they could have all the credentials in the world. And that's the problem is, and that's, I mean, we get deeper and deeper into that bullshit, but it's like, that's why it's so hard to see like girls who are like, well, I'm taking ownership of my body. And that's why I'm putting those bathing suit pics out, and I'm taking ownership. And, and it's hard because it's like, well, then if you say that, it's like, I'm not saying that you should be ashamed of your body.
No, it is tough.
But why is that becoming the focus of everything you do is my outward appearance? Mm-hmm. And then I've said this before, I worry about people that put so much on that, because that's going to go no matter what at some point. And then
it goes every day. It goes every day a little bit.
And that's all perception, right? Like, and even me saying that maybe isn't fair, because it's as if I'm falling into that idea that like, once you have wrinkles or once you have cellulite, you're not as attractive. I don't necessarily believe that.
I think it's more that it's not so much, it's not that it's you, people have more worth than what they look like.
Right.
Yes.
And society's not telling us that.
100%. And I would feel pretty confident about saying this too, is like, I mean, I don't have kids, but I have lots of nieces and nephews that are all ages. And I was around when Ruby was, 12 and on. And, we've had conversations about like what it's like now versus what it was like for my siblings, what it was like for you, what it was like for Devin, what it was like for like my parents.
Even the difference between my older kids and
exactly
Ruby, like the 10 years that
was like my brother to me.
Yeah.
Right. But like, even it's because I would say, I'm going to say because, but you guys, I don't know, but I feel like it makes a lot of sense because of social media with like these younger generations, like, you can completely restructure, our country, what it's like that's why it's teaching the kids, because they grow up right? And you have these kids that like, it's like I'm going to say young girls just because, we're talking about girls, but if we're talking about like social media and what it has done on like a mental level, it's girls that they want to look a certain way that gives them an endorphin, like, the pictures and the comments and the likes, it gives them such an endorphin rush. It makes them feel valuable. What sucks though, is that they're going to learn at some point that to put so much value on that, and then to, let's say one day you post something and you don't get as many likes on it. And let's say you're young, young person, young girl, and that fucks with you.
Yeah. Damages.
And it is very damaging and it's stressful. And it's like, in a way, it's creating more turmoil that doesn't need to be there.
Well, we've talked about this before, like even like likes, right? Mm-hmm. These kids think that getting likes means people like them. Mm-hmm. People don't like them because they don't know them. People like what they look like.
Yep.
Or like if they're being funny.
Mm-hmm. It's like
that's what they're liking. They're not liking you as a person.
That's why you have people that like, they idolize you, right? I mean, I experienced this and I've talked about it before, I think a long time ago, but you have these people that they start following you. And this kind of happened. I mean, I recognized this early on when I was really I was getting a lot of new follows, right? Every day. And they come to you for something that they love. But then it's almost as if people, all you are is an object. And through social media, all I am is an object. I'm being, it's like, that's all you are. Because you're on my computer screen. You're an object. And if someone watches a movie, well, we decide if we like it or we don't. I don't really like it. I don't really like that character. They should have done this. It's like, that's what we do to each other. That's what people are doing to you on Instagram. That is what people are doing to you on all of these platforms, because you're so removed from their reality that they want you to fit their reality.
Right.
And then they comment appropriately. Mm-hmm. But what's tough is like, you can know that and like be aware of it. But when you get those comments or lack thereof, or like the mean shit, it doesn't matter how much you know the reality, like the truth of like, they don't know me. It still will bother you subconsciously. And it will if you get to a point where you have, I'm going to say like trauma, but that's not necessarily, that's a pretty extreme word for something to do with comments on Instagram.
Right.
If you get to a point where I've been through this myself. So that's something that also makes me really worry and think about like my younger, like my nieces and nephews, and
who are being exposed to it at such a young, formidable age.
There's a very good chance that at some point they're going to get to a point where there's so much anxiety, I would say, that you can't even really pinpoint what's causing it. And a lot of it comes down to like self-esteem and perception. And it's not because it's what you think, but you have allowed so many people to put thoughts and ideas in your head that it's very hard to not see yourself through their eyes, even though they don't know you, right? They're just trying to mold you into what they want that character to be in their life of entertainment.
And the thing is that at some point that will all go away. Can you imagine a bunch of people like my age, like when they're like in their 50s still, I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, like there's going to be a point where they are no longer somebody that somebody wants to look at. And I'm not saying that they're less valuable or that they're going to get ugly. I'm just saying, like, as far as like perception, like, I mean, if I'm out there posting bathing suit pics And
you do it a lot.
Oh, I do it all the time. And again, I don't want our listeners to think like, oh, I think you're a piece of shit if you're in your bathing suit. I'm just saying, like,
hey, you guys, I just posted a picture of me in my bathing suit by the pool yesterday.
Yeah, no, I mean, so that's the thing is like, I'm not saying those things are bad, but it's like, why are you doing it? What are you needing to receive for it? Because if that is so important to you, I guess it's the level of importance it is. And I think somebody like you, Brooke, I mean, this kind of like this phenomenon kind of happened when you were like in your 20s, like you were, older and kind of like had already formed your.
But I had certain things that I needed to work through.
Sure.
And that came
still
from,
are.
what did I have? MySpace? But like, I didn't grow up with a cell phone, you know?
But I'm saying like these kids that are getting them in like 4th, 5th grade and seeing all of this stuff. Well, and they see their parents on it, see their parents on it. And, dad's looking at this girl and this girl and this girl, or, whatever it is. And
that just made me think of like my dad. And, and it's just funny because when he's on, he doesn't do Instagram, but he's got Facebook.
Yeah.
And so he'll sometimes, when you see what he's looking at, it's like farm equipment.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or like
trucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I just remember Ruby saying one time, it was when Nico and I had first split up, and I guess Nico didn't realize that his phone could go to the TV. Like it was linked.
Yeah.
And he had been on Instagram, and Ruby, of course, saw it. And, she's like the little like, oh, I'm going to go look and see what he's doing. And yeah, all she said was, oh, Mom, Dad's being a fuck boy. I was like, oh, no.
Oh, no.
I told you guys, like, you got to be careful around her. Like, you can't, and it wasn't like she was like 7 saying, I mean, she was like 15 or 16 or something. She was like, oh, man. But yeah, it's this whole culture of, looking at something for gratification and looking at something as an object and liking it. And then, so I'm just saying these young girls, they're going to put so much stake in, their looks and all of that. And then what happens? I mean, I have a whole other half of my life going on. If I felt like, I'm not worth anything because I'm not, this picture perfect idea of what everybody loves on Instagram, I'd be feeling really fucking shitty right now.
For instance, my computer's going to die. And so if it does die, y'all can sign off.
Okay.
But this is just a perfect example of that. And like something that is heartbreaking. I was taking them home. I took one of my nephews, I took to baseball practice. I think, how old is Trevin? 11? And then his older brother, we were picking up Trev from practice, and I was driving him home because my sister, she had some dental work. And so she was in bed. Like I had to move the kids. Anyways, as we were driving, we were almost to their house, and Colton says he was mad. I said, okay, as soon as we get home, y'all are going to go in, you're going to get ready for bed. You're basically like, just go and do what you're supposed to do because Mom's in bed and doesn't feel good. And he says, okay, we will. He goes, but I'm not going to talk to Trevin. And I said, why? And they're brothers and they fight. Okay. And I said, why? What did he do? And he said, Trevin told his baseball coach, that Colton liked his daughter.
Okay.
And Colton's like 13. And I said, well, I'm like, and so they're fighting like, no, I didn't. And then Colton said, cause he ran into the practice to get him, to pick him up. And he said, all the guys were just looking at me and yada, yada, yada. And I was like, Colton, I'm like, you shouldn't even care. I'm like, is this the same girl that I asked you if she was a brat? And you said, no, you said she's really nice and she's a good girl. She was good. And all these things. Yeah. And I'm like, you should just be walking in there proud that you like her. I was like, you're a handsome boy. And it don't matter. It doesn't matter if they know that you like her. If she's cute and she's nice, it makes sense. And whatever. And he said, no, I'm not. And I said, no, you're not. I said, no, you're not what? And I said, no, you're not handsome. And he said, no. And I said, who said that? I said, someone else. I was like, what? Did your friends tell you that? And he said, no. He's like, myself. And I was like, Colton, You are very handsome. Like this boy. And you guys, there's just so many intricacies and nuances of people's life. Like we really don't, we forget that people that you don't know that well, that you might see, or even like kids at school, right? We kind of forget that as complex as our lives are complex. And then as you grow and you age and more shit comes in, and it's like constant in your own world, you have a lot to worry about. Everybody does. Everybody has all the bullshit, and it could be different, it could be similar to what you're dealing with. Like Colton's, had been dealing with a lot of childhood trauma due to his dad, and they've gone through a divorce, and he's in jail, and he's, lots of different really awful things. And so that's obviously different than what he could be reading, or people could be saying to him online, or like what he's dealing with at school. But just like some of that stuff, like at a young age, if you have some traumatic experience, which someone telling you that you're ugly or like that, it basically, you create an issue that is subconscious, that then later in life, you may get to a point where you're in your therapy for childhood trauma, trying to get to the bottom of something that has now, caused so many issues for you, and you don't know what it is. And like, he's dealing with stuff that, both of them are in counseling, but something very different than just mean people at school, right? It's like family and a lot of really tough things that when you're young, it's like you learn how to comprehend things. Like children are so moldable. They learn how to act. They learn how to speak. They learn how to like perceive something as pretty or perceive something as ugly. They learn all of this. Everything is learned from adults, from people, from media. And it's like, that is the problem. Like that's a huge problem. And it is something we can't get away from, but social media is making it is going to make it even harder for those kids that have grown up in social media, like from a really young age, because there's no concept of real, because all of that is real. And that is so disheartening, because trying to help them understand the truth will be very difficult, if like almost not possible, unless they go through something that basically punch them in the face, slaps them in the face, being like, no, this is reality. This is not, this is. And it's just adding one more struggle that is, it's scary or sad, or like, I feel sad about it because I know personally how I've gone through different things as, learning, understanding. And it's a constant, I have to constantly remind myself when there's something that triggers, a natural response that was kind of developed from, bullying when I was little. And that's kind of brings it all back to like, who's going to fix it?
Well, I mean, I would say the only sort of, this is definitely not, it needs like a whole revamping, obviously. But one thing that I do think is better now, and I don't know if a lot of parents now are finding out about these apps that they have, which they didn't have when Ruby was younger. Now they're coming up with apps that limit screen time, what they can look at, and all this kind of stuff, which I didn't know that they had come up with all these things. So like my sister does that for Echo.
Yeah,
you only get a certain amount of screen time. You can only be on, you can block certain apps. Now it doesn't mean that they can't go and log in somewhere else or do that. So it's not going to mean that they're not going to have any exposure to it. They're going to have exposure to it from friends and stuff like that. But at least you can limit, because with their phone on them all the time, any alone time that Echo has, he could just be on his phone or on his screen or, so at least there are those now.
Well, and I guess
the only thing I'm thinking, like for my granddaughter growing up, like what that's going to look like.
Well, and I think,
God.
Oh, dude, I think it also is important to remember and, or think about is lead by example. So if your child is growing up in a home where mom is always on her phone and playing games and or watching TV and never goes outside, that's what the child learns to enjoy. Like, everybody has their own slight different interests or things that you learn. But when you are a child growing up, you're learning. Everything is new.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess like that's one thing parents can think about is like, make it something that we're all doing. Like if you want to control screen time for your kids, then maybe you turn it into like, we're controlling screen time for everybody because we believe that like you need to be outside, you need to have an imagination, you need to go and play and be active and physical and healthy and like create, and if you're doing it together or trying to like implement things that, make it all like, all encompassing, like the whole household or whatever it is, could make it fun for them, I suppose. If, you're doing it as like a family. I mean, I don't know. I've definitely decreased the amount that I'm on social media.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's just because after doing it for so long, I mean, I stopped doing it a long time ago. Now I do it because I need to. Like I'm trying to be more active, but it's definitely more of like, that's my intention behind it. Not, whereas, sometimes we get on social media and you start looking up something. Well, sometimes it's really valuable. It's like, if I'm looking up for like some nail inspiration, I go to IG and type in nail inspiration, stunning nails, dye my nails this color. Yeah. But I don't know. I think that's just where my thought stops. Sorry, guys.
She just like powered out.
I mean, we kind of covered a
battery.
Leslie, come wind her up. Come wind her up.
Yeah, no, we should wrap this up anyway. I got to get going. I got to go to work.
I love you.
All right. Well, hey guys, thank you so much for listening. Oh, are we wrapping up or am I leaving?
Yeah,
I'm leaving. You're just also going to respond to I love you. I was like,
I know. I love you too.
You really just stepped over that one. Didn't take the bait. Thought she would.
I was like, oh, okay, we'll wrap it up and then I'll tell you I love you. I don't know. I love you too. But yeah, thanks so much for listening, guys. Don't forget to
rate, subscribe. I beat you.
You did. 5-star rating, 5-star warning.
We'll talk to you guys next week. Love you guys.
Love you guys.
Bye.